Well, let's talk now to Leroy Chiao, as a former NASA astronaut and commander of the International Space Station. Leroy, it's a pleasure to have you on the programme. Thanks for talking to us. So, how exciting is this?
This is very exciting because, as you pointed out, this is the first large vehicle that NASA is going to launch really since the end of the Space Shuttle program back in 2011. So it's a huge rocket. It's actually develops more thrust than the Saturn V moon rocket, although it carries less to orbit. But nonetheless, it's the first big thing that NASA has done in a very long time.
Why is it the first big thing NASA's done in a very long time? What's been going on over there?
Well, because of, unfortunately, the tendency of organizations to become bigger bureaucracies and less efficient as they grow, as time goes on, NASA certainly and the contractors have certainly not been immune to that. And so you saw the creation of NASA in 1958 and then culminating with the landing on the moon less than 11 years after its creation. And here we've got a program that's evolved out of the original program called Constellation that began in the 2004-2005 timeframe. So, somewhere in the 17-18 year time frame. And now we've finally gotten to the point that we're going to make a first flight test with the actual rocket and the spacecraft.
And yet, conversely, of course, NASA has been criticised, hasn't it, for spending so much money on this. I think it's in excess of $20 billion price tag. There have been a few delays as well. I mean, NASA often is criticised for things like this. Is that criticism justified or not?
It's a fair criticism, I think. The NASA's own Inspector General concluded, and NASA confirmed the numbers, that each launch of this rocket is going to be somewhere around 4.1 billion US dollars. That's considerably more. For reference, although it was a few years ago, space shuttle launches were, during the end of the program, were probably somewhere around $800 million, not 4.1 billion. So in other words, you could have launched 5 space shuttles for each one of these rockets that's going to fly now. So certainly the criticism is justified, especially when you look at commercial companies like SpaceX. Their Falcon Heavy rocket, by comparison, it lifts about 2/3 of what the SLS lifts. It sells for about $85 million per launch, and their right. Starship and the Falcon Super Heavy they're developing is going to actually lift more than they plan to be lifting more than the SLS.
And it's been many decades since there's been any interest, really, from the likes of NASA or any space agency globally in the moon. Why is it that it's taken so long to get back into the moon?
It's not because of any kind of technological hurdle. It really comes down to funding and political will. In other words, there needs to be a political reason for the politicians to decide to fund such a program and fund it at a level where it's got a chance of being successful within a reasonable time frame. So back in 1989, when I was first interviewing to be a NASA astronaut, that was a very exciting time. President Bush, number 41, announced the program that was going to bring us back to the moon and then onto Mars by 2019. And of course, that unfortunately didn't go anywhere. But, there was a lot of excitement at the time. So here we are finally with a new rocket and a new vehicle, a NASA, basically for NASA. And hopefully this time we will also be successful in getting it back to the moon.
Absolutely. Well, let's bring in our panelists as well. And Paul, let me bring you in here, because there is a bit of a UK space agency kind of developing, isn't there, in the west of the country?
That's right. I mean, we're going to see, I think later this year, Cornwall is going to be our equivalent of Cape Canaveral, of all places. So alongside all those cream teas and pasties, you're going to get Virgin Orbit, who are going to launch our first ever UK launch satellite. Now, it's going to be off the back of a massive jumbo, and it's going to go horizontally rather than vertically. But I still, it's a big step for Britain, and it's a reminder that this is all about ultimately high-skilled jobs and bringing some economic regeneration as well as the sort of glory of reaching for the stars.
Do you get excited, Paul, about the moon?
Are you implying I howl at the moon, Mariam? I think you are.
I'm not saying you're a werewolf, but do you get excited by space exploration? Do you is it something you think that it's, is exciting?
Yeah, I mean, I've had the fortunate experience of visiting SpaceX in the US, and it's an extraordinary factory in SpaceX. I went with my kids years ago, and when you see up close the high tech skill that they've got there, whether it's designing their not just the rockets but also the spacesuits, it's quite extraordinary. And you think there are obviously spin-offs for the rest of science elsewhere, and that's ultimately what it's about. It's about scientific endeavour, isn't it?
Miles, where do you stand on the NASA bringing back exciting moon exploration and beyond even?
Well, I think that what Paul was really saying was he liked the clothes. That's what I gathered from that comment. He thinks the spacesuits are cool. He likes the clothes. Look, the price tag is loony. It's out of this world. You see what I did there, Maria?
Yeah, well
Leroy's
done.
right. Government spending here is gone out of control. But look, this is about more than just shooting for the stars. There is a big geopolitical element here, and I think that's the overlay. Space has gotten more competitive in the past few years geopolitically than it's been in decades. So I think that's what you're also seeing behind this. This is a big geopolitical statement for the United States to be ramping up these ambitions. And you can count on the fact that the Chinese and the Russians are watching this very closely.
I can see you nodding there, Leroy.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It is important, I think, for the country and for the West, frankly, because China's made no secret of their ambitions to launch their astronauts to the lunar surface. Russia would like to do it, but frankly, Russia doesn't have the money or the capability anymore to mount such a mission. But China is certainly going strongly in that direction.
Okay, well, Leroy, it's been good to talk to you. Thank you so much once again for your time.
Thank you. It's been